Grassroots Institute of Hawaii released its take on the costs of rail following the grand opening over the 4th of July, a holiday weekend. Rail critics have expressed concerns about the high cost of construction and the high operating costs that we placed on our children and our children's children. The Institute's analysis points to the low ridership numbers. It says for every $3 ride, taxpayers will be subsidizing the costs by $51. Joe Kent is vice president of the Institute. He shared his reaction to his ride on Skyline. He joined us in studio last week, Friday. When did you jump on?
Oh, I went on yesterday, actually, and went all the way out to Kapolei from the Aloha Stadium. And there were very few people on it, though. I was surprised. It was only 10 or 20 people most of the time. And at times, I had the whole train all to myself. So I was thinking, what are we running these trains for if there's so few people riding them right now?
What time of the day was that?
That was 5 p.m. So, 4 or 5 is rush hour time. And just a few people on there. I was kind of scratching my head wondering, is this like some sort of fluke or an anomaly? Is it a holiday? But it wasn't. And so if so few people are riding them, my concern is the cost. Think about last year. We wouldn't have opened the trains last year because we would have had so few riders. Well, this year's the same thing. We have so few riders, and the cost to run these things are $85 million every fiscal year. And so if you divide that by the riders, it's about $54 per passenger. That's a huge amount of money. It would almost be cheaper to just give everyone Uber or Lyft rides for free.
And you calculated that based on the initial ridership?
Yeah, they were saying it's around 4,000 on the weekend. So I took the highest number that they have and projected that out for the year. And that is about $54 per passenger, which if you compare to the mainland, light rails on the mainland, it's way, way, way higher. It's the highest in the nation. The next highest are Cleveland, San Jose, and Seattle, which are at $19 per passenger.
You just want taxpayers to understand the implications of going forward.
Yeah. We are about to run the rail nearly empty for a few years. Could be maybe 7 years before they finally finish the rail to the city center. And every year, presumably, that's another $85 million. And this cost is racking up. That could be $500 million that we spend on running the train nearly empty. And for taxpayers, this project has been painful, $10 billion and over budget and, over schedule. But now we're running it even more over budget with these $85 million costs every year. So I'm just wondering if it might be smarter to just not run the rail until it's finally completed. And supposedly when it is completed, the numbers will go up. And so, that would justify a lower cost per passenger. But taxpayers have been already paying through the nose on this, and now we're just paying more.
Well, the rail has to work for you as an individual. Does it make sense? Is it going to be faster? Is it less stress? And I think the taxpayers have to really make an effort to figure that out. Where do I park? Do I get dropped off in the morning? Do I get picked up? Is that doable? But it's maybe not going to work if you have a family and you've got to take kids to, sports things in the afternoon, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to really take some effort.
Yeah, I think everybody wants everyone else to ride the rail, but for their own lives, they don't always want to go on the rail stops. They don't want to ride a bus to the rail and then ride a rail to another bus and then take a bus to where they're going. We've changed the bus routes now to go towards the rail so that just for the very fact of trying to get the numbers up on the rail system. And so now some people may find a quicker route, but some people might actually find their route to take longer because they have to take all these stops. And they're trying to get Department of Education students on. I heard yesterday about a plan to try to give DOE students a free rail ride, but that just pushes the cost even more onto the taxpayer, of course. So there's no way to hide the costs of this. Someone has to pay for the $85 million every year, and that's taxpayers. Now, of course, into the future, they're talking about going beyond the city center and going to Ala Moana and maybe UH and even Waikiki we're hearing about. The rail officials are talking very confidently about this, like this is the plan, this is what we're going to do. But in the public, I don't think that the conversation is really happening. No one else is talking about going beyond, and that beyond also includes costs. So the only way they could go beyond is by extending the surcharge, increasing taxes somehow. And we have to remember the hundreds of millions, billions of dollars that have been taken out of the economy for this. The question we always have to ask is, what else could the money have been spent on? I've had train rides, the train's all to myself, basically. It's a nice ride. You get the train all to yourself, almost. But what else could the money have been spent on?
What else do you think the city could be doing to increase the ridership? If we want to make this work, we paid out so much already. I doubt they're going to tear it down. But yeah, what else can we do to make it work?
We're at a point where we're just trying to cut costs as much as possible because it's been kind of an embarrassment that the costs have run over so much. We are now the poster child in the US for over budget boondoggles. And so cutting costs should be the priority. Opening the rail when it's finished would be the best way to figure out how to get more riders on and to actually use the taxpayer dollars well per person. But it just seems funny to run it nearly empty for the next 7 years.
I know there is a concern about the Highlands parking structure because the Central Oahu people who might want to jump on this thing, from Mililani, they don't have anything yet. The concern about not enough parking rides, it is startling to see that image of where it ends in the ag field out on the west side. It's almost like the image, it starts nowhere and really goes nowhere.
The rail leaders right now are, in a sense, hatchet men. They're trying to cut back on the costs. The rail was $12.5 billion for a time, and now they've cut that back a couple billion by stopping short and cutting the parking garage and other things. That's a good thing that we're cutting back. We're saving taxpayer money on a questionable project. And at the same time, the flip side of that is when you ride the rail, it's not as good as it could be. We don't have the Pearl Highlands garage. It doesn't go all the way to the mall. And so the complaints are valid, but the flip side of that is we are saving taxpayers money, and that money hopefully can stay in their pockets so they can spend on other things. I mean, who is better at spending your money, you or, an official somewhere? And
we did see a lawsuit filed against Hart over the delays. And that's a concern because you're just wondering, ka-ching with the legal fees and trying to have some kind of settlement there between the contractor and Hart.
Yeah, there has been a lot of lawsuits over the years. Sometimes I wonder if people suing Hart are doing it out of a practice of Hart paying out a lot of money for these lawsuits, so they might as well sue. But on the other hand, Hart might be negligent somewhere. But the big lawsuit that I'm watching is the Howard Hughes one down at Ward Center there, where they're trying to build a building right where they want to build a rail stop. And they're suing. And presumably that's why we can't get all the way to Ala Moana, because trying to get through that would just be too expensive. So I guess now I hear the rail leaders talking about tunneling under to get to Ala Moana, which, I mean, if you remember the word big dig that comes to mind, that would probably explode the costs if we did that. So yeah, lawsuits are par for the course. We are now entering the city core in one of the most litigious cities in America. So that $10 billion is questionable even now that they've stopped short.
Anything else that you want to underscore?
I like the rail ride. I had fun riding it. It's a nice ride for my toddler and my wife. Sometimes we go on it just for fun, the views are nice. But I always think in the back of my mind, what else could the money have been spent on? At $50 or more per passenger ride, we could afford a plane ticket to a neighbor island. We could afford an Uber somewhere. We could save up for, a down payment on a car, or they could have fixed the roads in a different way or had some other sort of less expensive solution to the transportation problems. So this is a very expensive, very nice looking, very nice ride solution, but what else could it have been spent on?
That was Joe Kent with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii sharing his concerns about our train, which has cost some $10 billion to build, not including the additional burden to maintain and operate the system.